Hello survivors and welcome to another Walking Dead Road to Survival video, and in this video we're going to be taking a first look at Shane, who is going to be the next promo S-Class character coming to RTS. Shane as a character himself within RTS hasn't had too much love. I think he's had a 3-star, a 4-star, maybe a 5-star, definitely a 5-star ascendable because he has got a 6-star, so there aren't too many Shanes around. However, when I did ask you guys what character you wanted to see come to the S-Class era, a lot of people did actually say Shane. So I'm guessing a lot of you out there will be pretty happy with this character coming in. In terms of his visuals, he kind of looks as we would assume he would. He's dressed up in his police gear, he's in his riot gear, and this is early on in the apocalypse. Obviously, Shane was a very early character in the comics. That's kind of why he isn't heavily represented, you know, compared to the likes of Negan, Michonne, and Rick in the RTS history. The amount of characters those characters have got versus Shane, it obviously very much outweighs him, and he's very much underrepresented. But he is going to be here as an S-Class character. On the left-hand side, we can see his avatar, and this is what we're kind of used to in terms of how Shane looks, and this is how it will look on your roster screen. But we'll look at the stats. He has got 2,580 attack, 4,780 defense, and 4,704 HP. So very, very defensive for sure. Massively weighted towards those defense stats, and this is with the 30 veteran rings as well. And just to put those stats into a little bit of perspective, he has only got 500 less defense and 500 less HP than the trader. So the trader is obviously overly defensive. He only has 1,500 or so attack. Shane has a little bit more, so it isn't as unbalanced, but he's still very, very much on the defensive side. He is an alert character, and he is, of course, seen as a tank. With those sort of stats, you cannot really be surprised. So we'll take a look at his rush, and it is called Retributive Justice. It is a 66 AP rush. This character regains up to 100% of their max HP, and all other teammates gain 25% bonus HP. While battling on the defense team, up to 3 enemies get stunned and minus 50% defense for 2 turns. So 4 things going on here. You know, it's the magic number. If there's 4, it's generally going to be very, very powerful. It doesn't really matter what is being done in these situations. It's generally going to be powerful. One of them is to himself, but 100% HP to self is obviously really, really good. He's going to have a lot of HP as well. So that's going to be potentially, you know, up to 10,000 healed sometimes if he has the massive amounts of HP that some characters can get. The all other teammates getting 25 bonus HP is just frustrating on top of that. This is going to work on both attack and defense teams. The rest of it is on defense, and I think they're doing this mainly because they want to make this more of a defense team character. I don't think this guy can really be used on an attack team with the first half of that rush. But while battling on the defense, he does stun 3 enemies for 2 turns, which is pretty good. There are a lot of stun resists out there, and the fact that he is an alert character means you're most likely going to come with stun resist into teams that he's going to be on. So you're going to have a little bit of okayish resistance chance against this sort of rush. But the minus 50% defense is devastating just because attack teams are not really going to have that much in the way of defensive stats in the first place, and this will make it so that every even basic attack will just melt through them. So just to show you what happens when he does his rush, it's pretty obvious. As you can see, he's lost half his HP right now, and all of his teammates have 100% of their HP. If I defend with the gentleman and he rushes, he'll just fully heal himself. He'll also give me defense down and stun 3 of my characters. Now, Priya did obviously resist it, but defense down is on all of my characters. This means they're going to get absolutely demolished by basic attacks. And there's 25% boost in the bonus HP for all other teammates. Obviously, Shane himself does not get that. He does get the full 100% heal top up. So the rush is nice. There's some control in here, some heals, some group heals, and also some like boosts effectively to your potential damage output with percentage damage or basic attacks, which is quite nice for defense teams just because they generally don't do much damage and they don't have an offensive leader, so any boost is good there. Now we go across his active skill, and it is pretty basic: attack, up, and focus. It has an initial cooldown of 1, so first turn potential active skill here. Cooldown of 2, number of uses 10, up to 3 teammates get 50% attack and focus for 2 turns. So this kind of reminds me to the old school active skills where 3 teammates got focus. I was never a big fan of these personally. I wanted obviously it to go to a very specific people, and if it didn't go to that specific person, because it can go to the person who uses it as well, and if you've got a damage dealer, for instance, on an attack team, and you can't use their rush behind a shield, it just should be very frustrating. On a defense team, I think this could be pretty good though, because it obviously stops two forms of control. Confuse and Taunt will just no longer take effect, which is very, very powerful. Of course, there are characters that are in the game at the moment that have like focus remove. There is obviously items in the game that can steal focus from enemies in terms of weapon upgrades. On strong characters, there's Ransack, which can steal focus away from an enemy. So it isn't as powerful as it once was, but I don't see his active skill being like one of the main parts of this guy's kit. If you decided that you didn't actually want to level up this guy's active, the initial cooldown could be reduced down to 3, and then the cooldown could be reduced down to 4. So that's pretty good if you didn't want it to be used. If you wanted him to do more basic attacks so that he got that rush off more often, that would be the way to go. So in this situation, I'll just show you how it works on an attack team. Obviously, it is an initial cooldown of 1, but you don't have to use it turn 1. This is turn 2, and I can use his active, and it will go to 3 teammates, including Shane himself, and then my teammates will be able to attack past a shield if you so wish. However, the issue comes in with Shane, where if you want it to go to a specific character, when he does his active skill and there are 5 teammates in an attack team, obviously it will potentially go to himself, and it will miss out on characters that you potentially wanted it to go to in the Gentleman and Imani. I can't attack these 2 characters now. If I do try, it will just automatically attack the shield, and you can see this is why you want to try and bypass a shield. It's now got elusive up because of the elusive impair, and the Gentleman is impaired. However, on a defense team, it is okay that it isn't everybody, because just like I said, it just limits the amount of control that attack teams can use. There are a lot of princesses being used on attack teams, especially against alert characters, and she obviously runs with Taunt on her active, and this would stop it from working. So Shane's active is just like kind of so-so. It's completely up to you if you want to raise it or if you just want to leave it. It is basic, where it would be initial cooldown of 3 and a cooldown of 4, and you want to utilize that rush a little bit more often, like I said before. Now, while Shane's active isn't one of the most shiny parts of his kit, his specialist skill definitely is. It is a brand new specialist skill called Bodyguard, and it says the first time each turn that an allied teammate takes 30% of their max HP from a single attack, rush, or active skill, this character will take that damage instead. Damage transferred this way is reduced by 50%. So this basically means that if you were to do a rush against another character and you were to do more than 30% HP against that character, they would take none of the damage. It would go to Shane, and he would reduce that damage by 50%. And generally speaking, there hasn't been too much to stop percentage damage other than, let's say, Pain Split, and there were definitely ways around that in terms of actually making it work for you as an attacking character and an attack team. But Bodyguard seems extremely strong, especially as it doesn't require it to be put on somebody. It's just automatically on all of your teammates at the beginning of every turn. Okay, so we have got our rushes up on turn 2, as we would normally have in this sort of team. And we've got 2 Prias. The first Priya I'm going to rush Pete with, and we'll see what happens. The first attack should be negated by Shane, and he should absorb that damage as well. And then the other 2 hits should go to Pete, as long as they do more than 30% of Pete's HP. Let's take a look. So the first hit Pete. The second hit was absorbed by Shane because it was 30% of his HP. And then the third hit Pete again. The first hit was obviously too low to hit that 30% threshold. But as you saw, when he did absorb it, he obviously massively reduced that damage. And Pete has still got huge amounts of HP left. He's still at over 50% HP. The question we've got to ask now is, does it do the same on another character? So for instance, if I was to rush Guo now, will it absorb the first hit on Guo and the same sort of situation, occur? Or the second hit on Guo or the third hit on Guo, whichever one is the first 30% hit? Or is it only the very first character that is hit per turn? Let's have a little look. So it does look like it is only going to be the first hit per turn on the entire team. While it may only be that very first hit, against certain characters this is going to be very, very powerful. Obviously, for instance, one of the best ways to deal with Trader is pure percentage damage, trying to hit him as hard as possible while he's defense downed or something like this, just so you absolutely destroy him. This is going to absorb the very first big hit that comes in to take him out, and 30% of the Trader's health is generally a lot of damage, so him absorbing that, Shane, is actually pretty nice. It will obviously also absorb rampage damage as well at the beginning of turns. So for instance, turn 1, if a rampage attack was to come in that did huge amounts of double attack damage on somebody, he would absorb the damage instead and reduce it by 50%. Surviving those initial rampage attacks could be the difference between a loss and a win sometimes. So we're just going to see that turn 1 situation in terms of the actual rampage damage. Guo has got no combat mod, so he should take a lot of damage here. And you can see that it hit all 3 because it wasn't over 30% of Guo's damage. It didn't absorb his damage. Now we'll look at the second Priya. And this time it did absorb. You saw that it was not Guo who got hit. It was Pete, Wang Fa, and Shane. So effectively it can stop one of your weaker characters on a defense team just from getting that first turn damage against them. And as you can see that he's still got his max bonus HP over, you know, the initial weapon bonus that you get from Pete, just because he is very tanky and he reduces the incoming rampage damage by 50% once he actually absorbs it. Now something else we can check out is, will he absorb the damage from something like bleeds? We can get a very heavy first turn bleed off of, because I've got the Jasons and I can get that bleed up, and then we've got a Jie Feng. I'm not sure what the bleed is at right now because we can't actually see it, but it's going to be in, I think it's going to be like in the 4,000s basically. We'll hit somebody, well we actually won't hit somebody else because I'll add another 500 bleed to that just to make it extra. Now where does the damage go here on the bleed? It is still going to go to Pete, and it was a heavy bleed, 7,000. So it's not going to go to Shane. He cannot absorb bleed damage by the looks of things, and I would assume that would be the case for things like burn and obviously infection, which would be a one-shot takedown anyway, when you wouldn't be able to take that, you know, half that damage effectively. So this last test is just to see if Shane gains AP from taking that absorbed damage from the Bodyguard. Right now his AP is 28 out of 78, as you can see in the top right hand corner. We are going to take down Guo with Priya's Rush, and you can see the first hit gets absorbed by Shane, and then the next 2 hits hit Guo and take him out. And if we look at now the AP, he has taken AP, and he did gain 19 adrenaline points. Now this could be very useful because obviously that means he's going to take damage, generally speaking, guaranteeing it more often than not than other characters will. And this is where AP on defense could be a big bonus because it is based on the damage he's taking, and this is one of the few times where it could be very, very viable to use on a character. It would mean he would get his rush off more often, more chance for getting the control in, the heals in, the extra bonus HP, just to become very frustrating as a defense team character. So overall, I think the specialist skill Bodyguard is pretty good, but it would mainly be useful in teams that are already quite strong. I don't think Bodyguard by itself is going to suddenly make your team next level, but if you've got good characters on a defense team already, it's going to give them a chance to stay alive a bit more, which is obviously exactly what you want. Shane is not a prime target to take down. His rush is annoying, but he's not a prime target to take down, so other characters would be. And that's where Shane's specialist skill comes into nice usage. And like I showed before, he does gain AP from those hits as well. So, and that rush going off quite often with the control potential there, it's going to be very frustrating to have to deal with that. Now Shane also does have an attached weapon, and it's Shane's blocking pistol. It has a 30% HP, which is obviously nice. It's going to boost one of those defensive stats. A medium bonus to AP when taking damage, and absolute defense when being attacked, a great chance to reduce the damage to 0. Now a great chance is obviously better than a better chance, which is what you can craft. A great chance is seen at about 50% chance to actually reduce the incoming damage to 0, or whatever the effect would be, around about 50%, whereas a better chance is around about 33 to 35% in terms of what people have tested it out and kind of come up with these sort of numbers. So it's better than what you can craft. You can also not craft it on an alert character. Now from my tests, I didn't notice that Shane was actually doing absolute defense on the damage he was taking from his bodyguard damage. But I'm guessing because it was part of his specialist skill, he may not be able to absolute defend it. That may be something that's adjusted in the future, but right now it would seem that it doesn't work that way. Absolute defense on itself is very powerful because normally you'd have a character come into the game who is instantly kind of like a window. You've got to build up a nice weapon, maybe even 5-star it. Shane's weapon, you don't have to go too ham on it. You're instantly going to have a non-window on a defense team, and it is one that cannot be resisted too. It isn't like you can attack a stun on defense and resist it, and even if it happens, absolute defense is one of the most powerful ones because it cannot be resisted. Now, in terms of how you want to build this weapon up, it really would be down to you. If you wanted to do AP on defense and just utilize that bodyguard a little bit, could be useful. If you wanted to go for more pure stats, for instance, just 30% HP and 30% defense just to make him more of a rock and make him more annoying and stay alive longer, again, completely up to you. He has got a very fast rush, but if you did not put any AP on attack there, it still would be a 4th turn rush otherwise, which would not be very good at all. So you may want to just play it safe and do AP on attack in the middle slot, just so he is definitely rushing naturally on turn 3. So this is Shane, and overall I think he's going to be a very frustrating support character, very tanky of course, but he's mainly going to enable those very dangerous characters on defense teams to just survive a bit longer. For instance, the Trader obviously being another alert character, Shane's going to work hand in hand with him. Can go on any team with like Amani lead, Jackie lead, Pete leads, and the Trader and Shane should work very well together. Even if he doesn't do the damage reduction at all, he will obviously be boosting bonus HP on top of what the Trader already has, and a lot of the Traders I'm coming up against have 8 to 12k HP, and that just makes it insane. If you go over 20,000 HP, including bonus HP, it just goes ridiculous. So definitely some nice combos that can be used with this character, and obviously it is the first S-Class Shane to come into the game, and this was, like I said in the beginning, a very heavily requested character from my community. So I hope you're all happy to see Shane arrive in the S-Class era, but do leave your comments down below of what you think about the character. That is the end of my video. Thank you very much for tuning in, and as always, keep on surviving, guys. Keep on surviving.